Last month, I told you that we would be recommending or requiring masks in instructional spaces across the university for the first 4 weeks of the semester, and then we would be assessing that. This is now the fourth week of instruction, and we have announced that after tomorrow, and this is based on the recommendations of our own health and wellness experts and consistent with State Department of Health as well as CDC guidelines, the remaining face mask requirements for in instructional spaces across the system will be lifted after tomorrow. We are still asking that everyone be respectful of individual choices. Many people continue to wear masks and also to abide by signs that may be posted outside individual offices or for specific events and locations that may request masks be worn, and campuses do have the option to require masks in specific venues and events. Just to be clear, though, as a matter of public health, regardless of our rules, masking is required for certain individuals who have been exposed to COVID-19 or who have contracted COVID-19, and we lay out those details in our guidelines. And we're also encouraging everyone to sign up for the new bivalent booster that has been tailored for the Omicron variants that are in common circulation today. Flu shots also, everybody. COVID-19 is not gone, but it is not pervading all that we do as it had, beginning in about 2.5 years ago. With the board's permission, I don't think we will need a specific COVID report every month, and I'd like to just update you if there is something to report on moving forward. Next, a few words about the strategic plan. Last month, you got a pretty full briefing in the board meeting. That document has been refined a bit from what you saw. It is now published on a public web page, and we have widely announced that we are requesting input from both inside and outside the university, primarily on those 4 imperatives that I shared with you. We will also be conducting town halls, and we will have individual meetings with the system-wide governance groups as we continue to refine those. In parallel, we are also continuing work on action plans and metrics. And as we're looking through how this will lay out for the next 6 or so years, there is some thinking that the strategic plan may last for 6 years, but we will want action plans and that are probably more agile and adapt as we learn how to actually address those imperatives over the years to come. Similarly, last month I provided a pretty detailed update on the work of the SCR 201, aka tenure project, when you charged us in February to take some specific actions regarding our classification system primarily. Since then, we have continued to draft policies in the non-controversial areas like the faculty buyout policy. The hardest area continues to be the working group on non-instructional faculty. They have met since the last board meeting. They are continuing to discuss online as well. Our goal is to wrap up a set of recommendations by the end of this month, which is 2 weeks away, and then prepare the formal documents that will go out for consultation to UPA and the faculty senates across the system this fall. And we are still hoping to complete this work and bring to you what you have to approve in the context of the entire package by the end of the calendar year. A couple other areas I want to report on as usual. First, enrollment. As of this morning, we are now 11 days before census. This is when we freeze our data for the fall semester. Headcount enrollment for our 10 campuses is down 2.8%. I've shared with you that this is a pretty imperfect measure, but it's the one that everyone thinks about. And it's imperfect for a number of reasons, but perhaps the most notable is that it does not include the substantial non-credit workforce training, particularly by the community colleges, the kinds of projects that Regent Higaki talked about earlier for his workplace in the previous meeting, where we're making a substantial contribution to preparing the people of Hawaii for better paying jobs here in the state. And we will be reporting more completely on all of this in November, including a non-credit. And we've got some new ways of looking at this. And we've been slicing and dicing data in lots of different ways, just so we can understand what's going on. But so I'll just share a couple of tidbits with you. UH Manoa is again seeing its largest ever entering freshman class. I mean, that's really significant. First time we're at 3,100. It's the first time we've ever exceeded 3,000 entering freshmen in our history. Early college enrollment, again, pursuant to the last meeting, we are over 3,300. That's a 20% increase over last year and the most enrollments ever. And we think this is one of our best interventions for getting more high school students, particularly from our public schools, to enroll in college. The community colleges have noted that they provide the bulk of the early college in the state, but the students don't necessarily go to a UH community college, but it's still great for the state, and we thank them for that as well. Our transfer numbers are down. This is a national phenomenon, and we're starting to see some discussion of it nationally as well. And we need to do more, and we need to do better to move students from our community colleges into our universities. And lastly, let me just say that although the pandemic is largely past, students are opting by choice for far more online course sections than before the pandemic. So they have tasted online, they like online, and on many of our campuses, we are seeing that when we open two sections, one online and one in person, the online sections are filling up first and the in-person sections are not. And this is variable, very variable by campus. But interestingly, the one geographic pattern that we see is on the west side of Oahu. Both Leeward Community College and UH West Oahu have the lowest percentage of students who have any classroom experience at all this semester, whether or not they are in an online program or not. So we're digging more deeply into all of this, as I said. Research numbers, we're not even 1 quarter in. So how we're doing now is not necessarily a predictor of how we will end the year, but it's always better to be up than down. And as of this morning, we're at 132 million in extramural funding. That's compared to 127 million on the same day last year. So that's a 3.7% increase, which is good. What I'd like to do though today is I think just highlight one area of extramural work that we're doing that I think is particularly impactful, and that's around Red Hill and safe drinking water. So we have 4 projects actually underway right now. Some were funded last year, this year, but I wanted to focus on impact really. The first is a set of hydrogeology investigations in the Moanalua and Pearl Harbor hydrologic units of the Honolulu aquifer. And this is particularly focused on the potential impacts of the Red Hill fuel storage facility. And without going into gory detail, the ultimate goal of this effort is to provide a groundwater flow model that can be used to understand the risks of contamination posed by potential releases from the Red Hill fuel storage facility to surrounding sources of drinking water, and then to develop plans for minimizing those risks and mitigating potential impacts. And this, you may have read in the paper, that we don't always understand what happens to fuel once it hits the ground. And it's a very complex modeling of what, that's the hydrogeology that we have to understand. We have acquired and updated some of the instrumentation in the Water Resources Research Center, which is the lead for a lot of this, to be able to address current and future water quality testing needs with multiple methodologies. And again, this is something that you will have seen reported in the paper, that depending on the testing methodology, we get different impressions of what is the true status of water safety. We are also, from the engineering perspective, conducting research to understand corrosion rates and the causes and mechanisms of concrete degradation, and whether protocols can be developed or enhanced to better identify and mitigate any risks of those, such as coatings that might be applicable for the period in which that fuel storage facility is still in operations. And then lastly, this is turning out to be quite a team sport. And so UH has been on point for looking at a variety of efforts related to water security, preparedness, and resilience in Hawaii, as well as in the US affiliated Pacific Islands, through partnerships with public, private, and nonprofit sectors, better scientific information, increased analytical capacity, which we're building here. And this is a two-part project over 2 years to look at addressing the urgent needs stemming from Red Hill. And second is the area of water security preparedness and developing rapid response assessment frameworks collaboratively for situations that may arise. As part of our leadership, in fact, UH will be hosting a one-day conference at the Convention Center in Honolulu next month, October 28th, on water resilience in Hawaii, a UH innovation conference. This is spearheaded out of Vice President Sirmos in his office. And it has strong UH public, private, and nonprofit sector participation. And it's looking at the issues and importance of water to islands in general through both a cultural and historic context, but also looking at the complex technical challenges facing our state, including but not limited to the Red Hill water situation. So this is a really good example, I think, of how your research university is really looking into the major challenges and opportunities, in this case, a challenge that we face in the state. Just a quick comment on philanthropy, because Tim will be providing a complete update on last year, a good news story. And this quarter is not even over yet, but I just want to highlight one recent and remarkable gift that I took note of. We received a $4.6 million cash donation. It is completely anonymous, so we don't even know who it's from. It was done through a third party. And it is dedicated to our new Center for Indigenous Innovation and Health Equity. And I think Vice President Sirmos has mentioned this to you. The gift will fund an endowed chair for $3 million and provide $1.6 million in operating funds for programs and activities. And Amy Grace, who many of you have met before, and Kamu Enos will be, this is their baby, and they will be providing a briefing on the center and its the thinking behind it and what their plans are at the next meeting of the Committee on Research and Innovation. And I think that'll be pretty fascinating when you see the approach that they're taking. And the it's also interesting because they are, I mean this in the best way, they are incredibly distinctive individuals who have brought their talents together to do something amazing for Hawaii, I think. Finally, let me mention just 2 great events that I got to participate in this month. 2 weeks ago, I was invited to the inauguration of the Daniel K. Inouye Solar Telescope on Haleakala. Regents who have been serving for some time had a chance to visit. I think the last time the regents met physically on Maui, the D-KIST, as we call it, was under construction, and you got to walk through it then, climbing all of those stairs. For the inauguration, we had the director of the National Science Foundation, we had the chair of the National Science Board, and you probably saw the report on the director of NSF spending about a half day or so at UH Manoa getting updates on some of the research projects the day before this inauguration. Maui Kumuhula Hokulani Hopadila, who has been working on the Maui College work on mitigation for this project, gave an opening chant. Chancellor Hokoana spoke as well and was quite clear that the project wasn't welcomed by everyone on the island. That's something that the astronomy community needs to continue to hear. A highlight for me was meeting two young women, both from the neighbor islands, who are working at DKIST in highly technical positions. One has 2 UH degrees and is working as a mechanical engineer on some of the cooling systems. And one is from Kauai, and she did not go to school at UH, but she came home with her PhD in optical engineering, and her job is directing the light from the mirrors through the systems to get to the instrumentation that analyzes what are they actually seeing. Is pretty remarkable. The second wonderful event this month, and it's just great to be able to report on events again, I have to say. You may have seen news over the past few days about the Pacific Island Conference of Leaders, or PICL, meeting here in Honolulu at the East-West Center. And this is the heads of state or heads of government from throughout the Pacific Islands. They haven't met in person for quite some time. And 2 nights ago, we had the honor of hosting them for a reception at College Hill, along with the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman, who is, I have to say, from my perspective, more engaged in the Pacific than any senior U.S. government official at her level in my memory. But hosting this reception is just one example of the really strengthened partnerships that we've been building with the East-West Center post-COVID and under the leadership of their new president, Susie Veras-Lum, who is also making the Pacific a priority and was with them at our reception.